Brain scans, controlled studies, evolutionary psychology, and anthropology demonstrate that men and women are not the same. We are physically and mentally different. We input, process, and deliver information differently. We evolved with different priorities, and we are marinated in different combinations of hormones. Female babies like faces, male babies like moving objects. This isn't surprising, as we just learned, males and females see differently. Over 100 infants were studied on the day of their birth. They were given the choice between looking at a moving mobile or a young woman's face. The researchers were not told the sex of the baby while they recorded the baby's eye movement. The boys were twice as likely to gaze at the dangling mobile, while the girl babies were more likely to look at the face. Boys naturally use movement to think. Boys and girls of grade school age were studied to see how long it would take them to complete conceptual math problems. The boys solved the problems faster than the girls. The researchers noted that when they asked the boys to explain how they got the answer, the boys didn't use any words. They wiggled, acted, and gestured their process. Words were a barrier. So over the next following weeks, the researchers taught the girls to explain their answers with movement. They retested everybody, and the girls were able to solve the problems as fast as the boys. It seems that boys and girls have access to the same circuitry, but they use different circuitry as a default. Boys are more likely to take risks. Researchers in Missouri studied the responses of kids who rode a stationary bicycle while watching a hyper-realistic simulation. When confronted with a hazard, the boys were much slower to brake than the girls. If it was real, many of the boys would have been seriously injured. The boys also reported feeling excited during a simulated collision, while the girls reported feeling fearful. Males are more likely to die from an accident than females. As mentioned, males are more likely to take risks and overestimate their ability. Psychologists at Boston University estimate that this is probably why most drowning victims are male. Boys are way more likely to do dangerous things. They're way less likely to listen to the warnings of their parents, and they're way less likely to tell anyone if they do have an accident. US data shows that boys are significantly more likely to die of an accident like the misuse of a firearm or a head injury from riding a bike. And this goes way deeper. Let's say that the same amount of men and women were to get head injuries. The damage would still be worse in men. Researchers at the Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh discovered that there's a difference in the way brain cells die in men and women after injury. Once brain injury occurs, glutathione remains stable in females, but has an up to of an 80% drop in males, resulting in greater brain cell death. This could also be a contributing factor in the difference between overall longevity in men and women. Women use both sides of their brain to respond to emotional experience, while men just use one. A study from Stanford showed that when a female was shown an emotional image, 9 areas of her brain lit up, versus only 2 in the male brain. Women are also better at retaining memories that are emotional in nature. Males and females are not empathetic in the same way. We have 2 emotional systems, the mirror neuron system and the temporal parietal junction system. The MNS is responsible for emotional empathy. It allows you to feel what the other person is feeling. The TPJ is responsible for cognitive empathy. It actually allows you to distance yourself from the person's emotions, focusing instead on analytically solving the problem. We see this clash all the time. A woman will tell her man of a problem she's having, looking for emotional support. But if he is unable to solve her problem, he won't understand the point of having a lengthy conversation about it. A male's mirror neuron system is also more fragile and can be stunted by pacifier use. The most interesting study that indicates that women are more emotionally empathetic was conducted at the Institute of Neurology in London. They tested couples. First, the women were hooked up to a series of electric shocks. Then the men were given the same treatment. It was indicated to the woman when and what kind of shock was being administered to their partner. And even though the females couldn't hear or see their loved ones, the same pain areas that lit up when they were getting the shocks themselves lit up as they learned that their partners were being subjected to the same treatment. Researchers were unable to duplicate these results with males. Men thrive in conflict, women avoid it. Females are more concerned with social approval and preserving relationships. Men tend to get a positive chemical boost from conflict and competition, while in women it elicits a negative response. If a woman feels that one of her close relationships is in trouble, she may experience a change in her serotonin and dopamine levels, which will elicit a response on the similar spectrum as a small seizure. Overall, females have more brain circuitry dedicated to monitoring close relationships than men. Now, don't misunderstand me. This isn't because girls are better human beings than boys or something. This is an incredibly powerful survival tactic. It's even seen in other primates like baboons. The female baboon with the most social connectivity will have the most surviving young. As I already mentioned, in nature, females are more vulnerable, so their survival depends on social ties. Men are aroused under stress, while females are turned off. Men will get an extra sexual kick when stress levels are high. In fact, they will actually bond better with females under an aggressive or stressful environment. By contrast, a female is more likely to reject a male's advances in a stressful environment. Cortisol blocks the reception of oxytocin in female brains, shutting off her desire for physical touch. And if a woman does have sex under stress, she will not be able to attain orgasm because her amygdala is active. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. If a female is stressed, this is likely a reaction to an unstable environment, under which getting pregnant is a terrible idea. But for a male, a dangerous environment is actually an incentive to try and procreate with as many women as possible, because it increases the odds of his genetic survival in tumultuous times. Females are slower at spatial tasks than males. When mentally rotating three-dimensional objects, females will get the answer right as often as males, but it will take them longer. This difference is documented in both kids and adults, and it is likely because the spatial movement area is on autopilot in the male brain, while it's on standby in the female brain, waiting to be turned on. Females navigate using landmarks. Males navigate using cardinals and distance. This difference emerges as early as 5 years old, and it is probably because we use completely different parts of the brain to navigate. Women use the cerebral cortex, which is also used for understanding and interacting, while men use the hippocampus, which is an area of the brain that is pre-wired for navigation.